It's another week in Challengers, and well, the news, it keeps on brewing. We're shipping up to Boston, baby. Teams can't seemingly manage to find out who they want to play an hour before roster lock, and EMEA sees a shakeup, and Cup number 6 is disastrous for them. We cover all of this and more this week in Challengers. Now, and you might have noticed me wearing a certain articles of clothing here today. That's right, I have my Boston Breach Major 2 t-shirt on and my Telluride Bush hat. And that is for a very specific reason, because we got movement going on, okay? The Boston Breach are releasing Cammy, and they're making a call up. It's none other than Sparty Supreme is getting the call up to the CDL. Not really surprising, I think, for you and I. But the question for us here is who replaces him on the Telluride Bush. And it's none other than also Boston Breach vet, which I think is ironic now that I think about it. None other than Mr. Big Wake himself. Had a hell of a season 1 coming in on that Project Notorious roster. Excited to see Awakening join the Telluride Bush.
For sure, Bush have been brilliant, let's face it, all the way through the season. Sometimes hot, sometimes cold, but mostly hot, and they've done a great job. Spart largely leading the line there. He's been their rock all the way through the early stages of the season. Also great in the content and such, and you can understand the reactions on the timeline. A very upset fan base, not almost in a mournful way. Yeah. They know that they want to, it's like having your child like go off to high school kind of situation. It's like, we want you to succeed, but please don't leave home for too long. That sort of thing. So that's kind of where they're at right now. But yeah, obviously congrats to him. Hopefully goes in, has a great time, and that Boston team can reinvigorate itself. But yeah, Wake comes over. He was the community MVP of Elite One when his Project Notorious team win, puts up insane damage numbers, insane plays. And were we expecting big KDs and stuff from this guy? Sure, but I think his impact is being felt out there on the map as well, not just putting up some huge numbers on the board. So yeah, great stuff for him. He's going to come in, and that now makes it what? Wake and Proloot, Capsidal, and I'm blanking on the fourth.
Fire.
Someone help me here. Fire, yeah, of course. Yeah, Fire.
Yeah, and I think this is a good step up. If you are a fan of the Bush and you're kind of wondering, how does Awakening slot into this team, right? What can he bring? Because obviously you've watched Spart through a lot of these events have those takeover games, right? He's obviously been in a lot of those times, been the player who maybe threw a first set of rotations on a hard point, for example, doesn't look the best, but then it's just afterburners through the second set, and he's just helping get the team back on into it. And that's kind of always been our biggest kind of criticism, I feel like, of the Bush, is that sometimes they start really slow, right? And it feels like most of the time they're able to crawl that back in and they're able to take that map. That's why we see them, I think, go to game 5 so often. Or sometimes they don't get off to the right foot, and it's just hard for them to find that sort of footing to be able to go on deeper maps. I actually think Wake solves a little bit of the problems that maybe some of the Bush have. And that's because one thing that we know, he is a, and I mean this in a good, very positive light, he is a stat patter. This guy is going to put up kills, okay? And sometimes when we look at how Fire and Capsule are moving around the map, you need that AR, right? To just be finding the kills, flipping somebody out, putting them into a spawn that then opens up the route for you to be able to make your way on through. How many times did we watch Capsule, right? Try and maybe make some type of play that you would love to see an aggressive FSMG make, but he's just getting caught out because there are players filling into that space. That's something I think Awakening does really well. Put himself on a heady. He's in a power position. Good luck ripping him and coming off. We call him Giga Wake for a reason. And if he can find those 2 and 3 pieces, it opens up so much of the map for you.
It certainly does. I think as well, weirdly, I know there's been a couple of years in the past where people were saying Wake should have been out of the league. I think that this title would have actually been great for him. Yeah. It's all about high pace, all about putting up damage as a team. And yeah, he's an aggressive AR. He will certainly do that. So overall, do I think it helps or hurts the Bush? That's a tough one to answer because Spart has obviously been crucial to their early season success. But I don't know if help is the right word yet, but hurt?
Transform?
I don't think so. I think, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think all of a sudden they become, as you said, one of those teams that puts up huge damage numbers and get out of the blocks quickly, which should help them avoid a lot of those long saves and serve Jersey, Jerry, and the crew some heart attacks.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a very peculiar week of scrims, especially for the Bush, knowing that what we're going into next weekend, right? Like, obviously, they don't have to play through those qualifiers that are there, right? But I think what's good for the Bush is that they kind of have a little bit of time, right? Play those scrims this week. You're going to have a lot of these new teams, which we're going to talk about. New teams are going to be looking for maybe some scrim partners, maybe for some warm-ups. In the bush, they get to kind of sit there and say, hey, we kind of get all the benefit, right? We can go ahead, we can scrim these top teams, but we don't have to have that pressure of performing on that weekend. We can just kind of continue to do what we do, fall into that system, get Awakening brought on in. And I definitely think that the bush have a lot to look forward to. Now, obviously, anytime there's a change in the CDL, you're going to feel the aftershocks down in Challengers. And boy, have the last 2 hours of us trying to record this been insane. So we're going to try and start at the top here, Enigma, to kind of give everybody a level set of why what we're seeing matters so much. So normally, in Challengers, when you're talking about how many spots there are in an elite season, now, going into a season 2, what you would normally have is the 8 teams that made the playoff bracket. They would make up 8 of the 12, and the other 4 would be through that online qualifier. Now, obviously, rosters change an insane amount, right? But you're able to keep that spot as long as it is your captain plus 1 other player. So you can make 2 changes there, but your captain plus 1 from that previous roster. Or if it's 3 players from a previous roster, maybe your captain leaves. And then in some extenuating circumstances where if your team was forced because of CDL changes, right? Like, for example, like what we just talked about with Spark getting a call up into the CDL, right? So these are the type of things that you have to kind of keep in mind. Now, why does that matter? Well, we had roster lock come on through, right? Which is there's an auto roster lock, and we had 2 of our teams who should have been qualified, who didn't even need to play through the qualifiers, are now being forced to play through those qualifiers because some of the changes they made after the auto roster lock. The first one we got to talk about, it's Omit Brooklyn, who pick up Cammy and actually drop Fellow just a couple of moments before that roster lock happens.
This is so often you and me use like the whiteboard idea to kind of like come up behind us, and we've been sitting here. I mean, God bless like Josh, Ben, Pitt, like, you know, they've all just been trying to run and let us all know exactly where we sit. So yeah, Cammy will go into Omit. That meant Fellow was dropped, who had a pretty valid crash out on the timeline, to be fair. First time he's ever been dropped, he tweeted something like, and then it was 30 minutes before a roster log. He will then go into Falcons White. So that is now Arcites, Paul X, Too Real, and Fellow. For Fun Black have completely just exploded, which means you open up a slot there.
Yep.
However, what does exist now is a different For Fun roster, which is Geo and Yuli of the previous Notorious roster. Vivid and Mac come in from being dropped by the CDL. So you see how that extenuating circumstances works. It's only 2 of the previous roster, but you have yourself Vivid and Yuli. Unless Geo or Yuli were captain, then you've got technically +1. I don't know. We should do a better job in this scene of highlighting who the captain is, to be honest.
From what I'm being told, you can also transfer captainship as well. So I wonder if that's kind of what it was, right? Where maybe, you know, Yuli was kind of being able to be that captain for that squad. Yeah. Previously, obviously, they kind of, it's a weird way to think about it, right? Because it's like, well, we had For Fun that was there. It's like, technically, it's like the Project Notorious slot, but it all just goes by the player. The team names associated with it, that changes week to week that are there. But the important thing to note here, if you are a Challengers fan, is that basically what this means is that rather than 4 open qualifier spots being there, there's now 7. Okay. Now, if you've been watching any of our episodes, we've been talking week over week about these new rosters that have been getting formed and how it seems like North America, the competition is somehow getting more and more rising, right? We just had that whole C9 roster get exploded. There's now a couple rosters being formed out of ex-CDL pros. We're starting to see some more rosters like this now come together. What that means is that obviously with more competition, there's going to be even more fight for those slots. And it just means that Elite Season 2, I dare say, will deliver on a lot of the storylines that we've kind of been seeing brew over the last couple months that's there. So with some of these teams that have already, you know, were should have been, by all intents and purposes, auto locked on in, they don't have to fight their way back through the qualifier. It's going to be heartbreaking to see a team like Omit Brooklyn or Falcons Academy White, if they somehow don't make it into that group stage for Season 2, man. I mean, that's going to be a tough pill to swallow.
I mean, we saw some big name teams, right, miss out last time. We saw that the Bush had to scrape through. Yeah, it's tough times for anyone who, especially in NA, right? Like, it's an incredibly deep player pool. EMEA, I think you kind of get the same figures riding through, and we'll touch on some of that later. But yeah, it's confirmed the other teams that will definitely be there. Huntsman, of course. So that's Renegade, Rispy, Johnny, and the mentions. Then it is going to be Five Fears as well. This is the one that threw you and me for a minute. We were a little bit confused about who had the whole captain spot here. Darkside, Rupert, KB, Phantoms, and Falcons Green, Roxas, QK, Standy, and DeLuca. A wild situation going on right now. Then when we talk about qualifier and the 7 that's going to get through, you got like the FaZe Falcons roster that had Paul X, didn't have Paul X. Like, it's been nuts. What that serves to tell us is scrims are going to be interesting this week, but also so is the elite qualifier. Going to be a hell of a time.
No, going to be a very, very big blast. So if you're a fan of any of these rosters on your screen right now, don't worry. They don't have to play this weekend. But if you see your favorite team not on this list right here, hey, lock in, because I know that qualifier weekend is going to be a blast to try and follow, like Andy just said. So, I mean, man, I'm going to be locked on in. I think we're going to see some upsets. Maybe with there being 7 spots, all of a sudden you have a little bit more opportunity for maybe some of these teams to squeak on through when we can see there's something like an omit Brooklyn, right? Maybe that's why they're not as worried about making a change seemingly so last minute. I don't know, man. But all I know is that if I had to play through an open qualifier gauntlet myself, I wouldn't feel too comfortable. On the other side, of course, in EMEA, we did actually have some drama, unsurprising to nobody, in Cup number 6 going on in, where we had 4 of the top 8 seeds be forfeited in Cup number 6. So we had the teams were Light Unlimited, Treaty 1, Dark Horse, and Rock. Rock we'll get to because it's a little bit of an extenuating circumstance. But for Light Unlimited, they're DQ'd because a player joined at the last second and admins weren't really having it from what it sounds like and saying, nope, wasn't here in time. We have rules for a reason. Sorry. Good luck in the next cup. Eliminated. DQ'd. Treaty 1 gets DQ'd because apparently, according to Kez, Henry just sleeps in until 1 p.m. and just misses the check-in. And then Dark Horse is getting DQ'd for wrong Activision IDs by Night Vibes as well. Let's talk about these first 3, man, because I mean, I know that there's a lot that's going on. At least for the side of like Light Unlimited, Dark Horse, this feels like a little fugazi. If you're Henry from Treaty 1, though, brother, set an alarm. I'm begging you. Get an alarm clock.
I mean, for Light Unlimited, I will say, like, look, I feel for the other 3 players on the roster, right? But you know when you're playing. Like, you know when you're playing, and unless there was extenuating circumstances, for example, work kept you a bit longer or something like that, that's totally fine, of course. And it's just unlucky. But if you're rocking up last second, look, it's just dumb, quite simply. Like, I don't really have anything else for you, unfortunately. Sleeping in past 1 p.m., again, I really feel for your teammates. Again, just stupid. Also, we have to be 18 to play in these. What do you mean you're sleeping in beyond 1 p.m. on a Saturday? I don't know how we're achieving that, knowing that we have commitments. So yeah, that's just really unfortunate circumstances. I will say though, for the Activision ID stuff, if I will put a big asterisk there just in case it's an if it is Night Vibes who have gone and forfeited their opposing team, all that tells me is you were scared of playing your opposing team. Like, that's all it does. Your CODpedia is going to look a little bit better because it said you managed to make it 1 round further, but it doesn't make you any better, gentlemen. Yeah. You are not like that is. I'm trying to think of like a word that is not too strong for this because it's ridiculous. Like, what are we doing? Teacher, these guys haven't got their correct Activision IDs. We know that it's the actual players. We know that they're fine competitors that we've played online and all these other things, but we don't actually want to play them, so we're just going to forfeit them. It's pathetic. That is if they were forfeited for that reason. It might just be the face it noticed, which, as much as it's not the best rule, it is our rule, and you're supposed to follow it. So it's difficult to know which side that lies on. So that's where I sit on those weird 3 ones to get us going.
Well, and what also kind of stings a little bit about that as well is like even with like the Henry situation is like he causes the team to get forfeited, is chalked, and then leaves. He's not even on that team anymore. So he's like, yeah, I chalked your cup. Like, I don't even really, maybe that's what it was. Maybe he's just like, hey, I know I'm not going to team with this team. So I don't even, why am I even going to bother waste my Saturday trying to play through the cup? That was there. Wild. But let's talk about the next one. The 4th team was actually the reigning Challengers Elite Season 1 champions, Rock Esports. Also got DQ. Now this one thankfully has a story. It's got a nice little ending to it. But basically, they were forfeited because Rixold loads on up to play into the cup, realizes that he has had a temporary ban on his account. So what happens is basically Faceit admins are like, hey, you're temporary banned, like you can't play per our policy. You know, we can't allow you to come in. Rock was almost going to have to be forced to be able to keep their spot because it was like, hey, you have to bring in another 4th to go ahead and play, right? If you want to try and keep playing through this cup. But they're like, this is dumb. Like we like obviously it's like there's nothing that's here. Like, why are we getting falsely banned essentially? And Faceit was kind of taking their sweet old time trying to get in touch with Activision to figure out what it was. Thankfully, it feels like Rock was able to get into touch with the correct people that are there, and were actually able to get it reinstated. I believe they were able to play the cup, but also more importantly, they were able to keep their elite spot, which is the big one, because I think that would have been really, really shitty, obviously, if like the remaining champions can't even play with their same 4 roster after we saw how good they looked at the Major 1 Open.
Exactly, right? So I feel like this is one of those weird ones where we obviously have to be a little bit gentle about how we approach this because we like our jobs, but it is a case of this is where we need a challenger's version of Daniel Sai. This is where we need a commissioner of some kind in challenger, someone who is going to sit at the head of the table. And let's say it was yourself, Dan, and you know, someone comes to you and they goes, look, this is the situation. Like, you would turn around and go, look, this guy won the LAN. I trust him not to be cheating. Like, get him in, get this over with and done with.
Sure.
And like, for me, that is where something like that exists, because as much as as much as I have many comments for Face It and kind of the job that they do sometimes, they have a rule book. They have to follow that rule book. They very rarely get the opportunity to make an exception. On the days that they are trying to make those exceptions, they've got like 64 or 100 other teams to try and put into a tournament. It's chaos. They're trying to run that on a very thin budget and a tight line. It's very difficult. They're also then hoping for responses from higher ups, right, on a weekend. That's just not easy. You and me know this. And then it's chaos on that end. So I'm not trying to defend Face It, but also at the same time, they don't deserve some of the slack.
There's got to be a middle ground.
Exactly. But then it's a case of it's just one of those where it's like, okay, well, these guys are Major 1 champions. Are we not able to whitelist them from shadow ban situations? Like, I can't stress enough how much the shadow bans just aren't suitable for purpose. They just aren't. We're banning people that have literally, I mean, how long ago was it? 2 weeks that they won the Open or something like that? And it's like, you win
that was
on
what
LAN.
was terrible about it, is that it was a 2-week ban and it ran out the day after the cup.
We could go on about it all day. You and me spend a lot of time, obviously, in the Warzone space as well, where we're very heavily afflicted by this. And it's a case of, look, shadow bans don't work. Let's try and mitigate them as much as possible. I mean, at best, we get rid of them. We find a better system, but that's for another day.
Yeah.
Let's whitelist people. Like, let's get these players on. Like, look, it shouldn't take that you win an Open, then get banned afterwards for us to go, maybe we should change this. There's got to be a better system to this, and this isn't the first time, and it won't be the last time that we have to deal with it. So whoever, if anyone is listening, please find a way to put these guys on some whitelisted accounts so we never have to deal with it again. It is so dumb.
But with some more positive news from the EMEA region, looks like Lqgend has found a new home. Again. For the 3rd time that is there. But this one I feel good about, Andy, because he's actually moved back to Europe and is going to be competing in the EU Challengers along with Whalers, Twisted, and Henry, as reported by Kez CZM Intel. And we actually get a little bit of extra news here. And Kez makes a tweet and Pitt's asking, hey, what's happening? And he says, you got everything tweeted except that Paris Mate Academy of Lqgend, Whalers, Henry, and Twisted. So this is a huge news. Obviously, I know you're the world's #1 Gentlemates fan that is there, but we were kind of talking about it and why this is actually so good, I feel like, for the Challenger team in general, right? We've seen the impact that the Gentlemates have in Call of Duty. Unfortunately, on the CDL side, their team is not European, which is fine, right? Their team is gross. They're nasty. I think you'd rather take a winning team than necessarily one that just represents your region. But it feels like this is a way that the Gentlemates now get to finally actually support European Call of Duty and maybe have, you know, a French roster. We've talked about these various French rosters and how, you know, how good they've looked, and being able to see a team like this, I think, is really, really nice, especially with somebody with as much prestige as Lqgend. If he can kind of get it together and become the player that we expect him to be, this could be a very good look for the Gentlemates.
Certainly, there's a lot to touch on, and I the way you've put Lqgend up there is kind of just where we're at the minute. Hopefully, he feels better back home in France. Hopefully, this is the move for him now and lets him kind of stabilize after what has been a tumultuous period. Right, Halo was cancelled for a year. You come over to COD, you get picked up, dropped into the ocean with no armbands, and unfortunately, you didn't really learn how to swim. So yeah, it's been a whole kind of mess, but hopefully this works out for him. I will say, obviously, Twisted getting thrown into the pack here. Nice opportunity for him to prove himself. Henry hopefully can wake up for his alarms during this period. And for Whalers, this is actually a full circle moment. Yeah. For Whalers, for those of you who aren't sure, so Gentlemates is owned by 3 different content creators. Well, 4 people now, but 3 main content creators that set it up originally. And this was Squeezy, Brox, and Godiga. Now, Gotaga and Brox played with Whalers back in Black Ops 3, I'm pretty sure it was, under Vitality. So this is one of those moments where this is coming. I mean, obviously, Whalers played then for years. I mean, getting top 12 in Black Ops 4 champs and like really good achievements all the way through the years. Then goes off to Valorant, now comes back, and is now going to be running underneath. Apparently, it hasn't been officially announced, so we'll asterisk it very quickly, but the Paris Mates Academy. And that is just a wonderful thing. And as you said, injecting some org energy into Europe as well, and a region that's, or EMEA, a region that's felt a bit underwhelming there in some regards. So yeah, this is a great move, and looking forward to seeing how they do. Hopefully they get all of that love and support that we've seen players like, for example, Spart have with Bush, right? His Twitch account has been going absolutely crazy. Hopefully these four fellas get the same kind of love.
Yeah, and if you're also, one thing that was kind of nice that I saw is that it looked like Whalers has a history of helping bring up these young sort of French talent to try and help them bring up, right? Mainly comes out of Paco, Hydra, comes out of sort of the Whalers Academy, as I saw online as well. Could be the same with Lqgend, and maybe this is a difference where you say, hey, Lqgend, you obviously have some insanely raw talent. Let me help you mold it, how to learn how to play Call of Duty in a correct way, build up those fundamentals to, like you said, can hopefully maybe be a force. And alongside players like Henry and Twisted, who are definitely known in the region as well. I'm very, very curious to see how this roster does. Kind of feels like a boomer bust moment for Lqgend, if I'm being quite frank with you, where this is kind of your last shot to really try and make it. Otherwise, I don't know what we're going to see here, because you've tried it all, right? You've gone from the CDL, you've gone to top challengers teams, you've played with ex-Halo pros who now want to come on in and play in challengers. Now you're finally back at home in your region, you know, with a solid org behind you. Definitely very excited to see what they can do, but also just excited to see another potentially heavy hitter EMEA team be able to enter the space, because that's something that we've been begging for, right? It's like, hey guys, Clutch Rain and Rock exist. Dark Horse is there sometimes. And it feels like we just talked about the same teams over and over again. Give us another team to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, we got the names there, and you're absolutely right. But this is an opportunity to kind of, like, as you said, with heavy hitting, it's that injection of eyeballs. Like we are constantly like you and me, we sit and try to get the topics together, and it's like we're struggling to find something to talk about with EMEA. This time it's forfeit drama and stuff, sure. But then like a lot of the cups is like, okay, the same top three. There's what's the back and forth here? There's very little roster movement at times, So yeah, this hopefully is that moment where EMEA gets that buzz as well, that injection of energy, and we see it skirt up, because we know what this region can be like. We've got the Birmingham Major coming up. If you've got a Paris Mate Academy team playing and the Gentlemates are up on the main stage as well, this is going to be absolute cinema. So fingers crossed that this all comes together and sees them smoothly through this part of the season.
As always, the Challengers action will continue to broil, but it feels like Enigma, hopefully we're kind of getting to where a little bit of point that dust settles. We've gone through Roster Mania. We have qualifiers this weekend. We'll know by the time we get ready to record next week who's going to be playing in those Elite Season 2 qualifiers, how maybe those groups are looking, and feeling pretty solid about that. So as we kind of look towards this weekend with the qualifiers, what has you most jazzed, or has you most excited about some of the matchups that we potentially might be able to see on stream?
I think it's getting the first proper look at a lot of these new rosters. There's always a roster mania coming against these like qualifier periods and everything else, but this feels like one of the more active in a while, just because of the amount of pickups being pulled up into the CDL, as well as other bits of wild changes that have come through last second. But you've got that coming in, potentially a Paris Mates Academy roster now being lined up. So a whole surge in the second split of the season. I feel like usually you kind of get this big lift at the start of the season, big lift towards the back end of the season, middle can kind of flatline a little bit. Not so much here. Apparently everyone's a little bit a part of it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it all breaks down.
Well, chat, let us know. Who do you think is going to come out in those qualifiers? How do you feel about how the Bush are going to perform with Awakening joining on in? And maybe, are we going to get a GoFundMe for Henry's alarm clock? That's all we've got for this week here in Challengers.